Is everyone here, or?
Can you shot device again? It's hard not to, right? Can you explain what is benched exactly? Yeah, I mean, I'm not in the starting roster, you know. I'm doing nothing, you know. I'm not practicing. I'm just chilling on the bench and looking for a new team. I respect the NIP's decision, and I don't. And I would lie if I didn't say I would do the same, you know. It's not that everyday device is available to pick up. Device is better, yeah, man.
Nice chat. We're gonna do this once. Okay. Because I've been streaming long enough to know that when news of this magnitude strikes, that's going to be my whole chat for 3 days. Maybe a week. With the level of gravitational pull that device has. And news that is this cataclysmic in the scene. Instantly, one of the most insane transfers in history. You know, Zai was probably never leaving Vitality. Simple's probably never leaving Na'Vi. And Device is probably never leaving Astralis. Those were probably three of the most locked in players for their teams anywhere. In any top 20 teams. Any of the top 20 teams. That had to be, of any of the players, those three. Imagine what was offered to Device when he brought it up. Put yourself in the shoes of the organization the day that Nikolai walks into the office and says, I want to stay in Sweden. If you ever watched Entourage, you have an idea what kind of presents someone might get. Pulling up to his apartment in Copenhagen.
Fish hug.
To try to make sure that this fleeting thought, this crazy idea that the biggest star player in Denmark on their organization with 4 majors won't leave. Imagine what they tried to do to stop this from happening. That's how big of a move this is. Try to imagine if Simple tried to leave Na'Vi. If Zaiwu tried to leave Vitality. If Device tried to leave Astralis. And now we're in the timeline that Device is playing on a Swedish lineup in Sweden at 25. We're 4 majors deep. This all started in 2017. My personal favorite major, apart from the Cloud9 one. E-League Atlanta 2017 Grand Finals win over Virtus Pro. Kirby leaves. Magic's comes in. Glaves establishes himself as an incredibly strong IGL. The rest of 2017, a lot of second place finishes, a lot of playoffs, not too many trophies. Then boom. 2018. Another 2 majors. Device gets his first major MVP. The Face It Major 2018. Grand Final versus Navi. The most dominant year of Counter-Strike of any team in the history of the game. Maybe franchise in its entirety. I mean, it's not for one reason. There'd be no way it'd be for a single reason. It's Glaive and Device. Dupree, Magic, all of them, top 20. Basically a lineup of, all top 20 players with the greatest IGL in the history of the game. And Device, the most consistent player in the history of the game. Who has been top 5 for the last 5 years. Top 3 in the last 3. And top 20 for the last 6. Imagine what they offered him to stay on the lineup. So, where are we now? One of 3 players in Denmark on Astralis who have attended every single major, and they did it together. The only core left that had attended every single major is now broken up. And they'll probably never play with each other again. On that road, they won 4 majors. Can't ask for a better run. But it's over. And Device did a press conference today and talked about how one of the biggest accomplishments that he could have now is to do it again with a new lineup. So, what's the number one criticism of Device? That his team sets him up. And he's only as good as his team is. So, for Device, his goal now is to do it with a new lineup. On NIP. It is not. It might be. It might be the second half of Device's career, but it might not be. And we might barely be 50%, right? I mean, we're still. He's 25 now, so he's been playing for a really long time, but. It's not a retirement home situation, of course. So this is a incredibly dramatic change for that reason. if, you know, if we look at Olaf joining FaZe at that moment, that was a power move. What it ended up being was Olaf playing a lot of support roles and taking on that position, kind of like Rush is to Complexity, like Stewie is to Liquid, like all of these other, like Coldzera is now to FaZe from what we saw. At the time, that wasn't the idea, but that's what it became. But Device moving over to NIP will not be the same as that. Unless he fails. So in some senses, it's even more dramatic than those. When we had the FaZe signings, they had Nico yet to win a major. So he could be placed as the star on a team with other players who had done it already. Coldzera, 2 times major, 2 times major MVP. Olaf, of course. It was Nico who was the hungriest, maybe the highest individual peak at the time of signing. And on this roster, Device is the best player on this team by a wide margin. And will be opping and will be given the space that he needs. And is here to prove in a situation where he can never come back from this, switch back or go anywhere else, that individually he's as strong as he believes he is. So at this point in his career, a major is the only goal. A major in a new lineup is the only goal. Besides becoming or getting it top one in the whole world. But getting top one in the whole world is, it might happen, it might not, but it can never come over top of your team accomplishments, winning the major. No. He has 4 majors. He doesn't care. He wants top one in the world. No. He could have 4 majors, but now he's on a new lineup. And what's the number one criticism of Device? That he needed Astralis to succeed. Even though he's major MVP, 2 times major MVP, 4 times major champion, top 5 individual player for 5 years. That's still the number one criticism. Either way, across sports, he drew a comparison to LeBron. Winning in a new home is a whole other level of accomplishment. You don't need to look at what Pimp said. You can listen to Device. He said it himself. So, this is where we're at. Device on a Swedish lineup. A dark horse lineup, right? The player who gets removed, of course, is Knock. Opera on the lineup. Right now, ZTR is apparently calling on 2 maps. Amp is calling on the rest. Presumably. And Device is leaning on Rez and Plopsky to be 3 top 20 players for this to be possible, basically. This is the only way. I firmly believe that if the system is stronger, people's individual skill rise. And of course, the stats go up with better placings at tournaments, deeper runs, more dominant map wins, steeper score lines. The stats just rise naturally. But in terms of consistency, you never know how consistent someone can be until they're in the right environment. So if there's anything that Device can do for the lineup, apart from carrying on his individual performances, is to explain how it was that Astralis were so consistent at the top level. I mean, he can. If there's anybody that can bring it over, it's one of the 5 core players on Astralis or Zonic. If you were to switch teams, right? No one could say it better. I think Plopsky and Rez can both be top 20 players. But anyways, this is still a tall task because, yeah, even though I think, okay, Rez and Plopsky could be top 20 players, this is a lot. There's a lot to ask for a team that's been at best very inconsistent for a long time. But I'll believe. I'll believe. I believe until we're proven otherwise. I'll believe. I don't think that they're completely lost, personally. I think it's been too long since we've seen them achieve something, considering the fact that they have Rez and Plopsky on the team. So, for that reason, I actually do hold out some hope. He talked about reflecting on his career and he can create the best possible legacy. And again, I think this is where he drew that comparison to LeBron with what he achieved with the Lakers and everything like that. Moving to a new home and then achieving with that team as well. I mean, there's other reasons why he's moving, not just, career or professional reasons. But he can't make a move without understanding the gravity of that decision, what the impact on his career that it'll have. He has to take it very seriously. Yeah, like Tom Brady, like LeBron, like a lot of people, because what becomes the only criticisms of them, their teams, their coach, right? Even though those criticisms might not have been valid in the first place, maybe they weren't. The best way to prove it is to do it with a new lineup, do it in a new home. Yeah. Yeah, and just like with LeBron, anybody with eyes knows that Device is a star player and always has been. Even when the team was bad, he was carrying the team. Even before the majors, he was a top 20 player. Even when he was on a rifle, he was a top 20 player. Even, before the team had Glaive, before the team was this great system we talked about, he was a top 5, top 20 player. He was a star player. He's the best player in Denmark. He was the best player on Astralis, and that's a fact. That's a fact. Call him a system player if you want, but how strong exactly is the question. Do I think Device individually is better than Simple or Zywoo? No, I don't think so. But in this year, we've already seen like he can be that player. If he can be that player for an entire year is another question. Can he be that good on any one day? Yeah, he can, for sure. And he is still the most consistent player of all time, the most decorated player of all time, and the most whatever. Probably the most studied opera of all time, even over Simple or something. But that's pure individual peaking consistency. Of course, he's got something to prove there. So potentially still goals in that regard. But yeah, in either accomplishing top 1 in 2021 or winning a major with a new team, they both answer the same question, whether or not he is that individually strong. So okay, yeah. This is not a sudden thing. He talked about going to NIP about 2 weeks ago, something like that. He brought that up, but the lineup as a whole and Astralis, it's not been amazing terms, and there's been lots of talks about when will this all come to an end with the organization. I'm surprised about individuals leaving their teammates. I wouldn't have been surprised if the team left the org, or if they went to a new place, or the core stayed together and went to a new org or something like that. But now, I mean, this is the craziest thing to happen. And yeah, I mean, COVID is a huge reason why we even get to this place in the first place. Top of, there's stuff where their contracts are ending and we don't know if they want to stay with their org or if people are going to leave. That's one thing. But then the pressure cooker that is this last year, no major, online CS, having accomplished everything already with this lineup and maintaining the motivation to deathmatch every day and keep up with teams like Gambit who are playing 10 hours a day every single freaking day. On top of all of that, this is the only way that something like this can happen. So in some ways, this is really kind of the capstone piece of news to culminate all the shit that's happened in the last year and a half. It's definitely not something that would have been possible, right? That it would have been way more unlikely, I guess, is the best way to put it. Who knows what's actually possible or not. But the ripple effect that can come of this is absolutely extraordinary. The thoughts behind where this leaves NIP, who now are officially international. And if there will be a roster change to follow after NIP dropping Knock, will another player end up getting replaced? Is that possible? Sure, certainly. Could that player be Danish now? Certainly. And then we look at Astralis, who have 4 players. So it looks like OC is going to have to learn Danish. Oh shit, I forgot about Bubsky. Okay, they have 5 players. And we don't know what'll happen with Astralis, because Bubsky is not a device replacement. Bubsky is not a replacement for device. For the same reasons that Bubsky was not playing on Astralis last year, because when Glaive and Dupree, well, Dupree didn't leave, but when Glaive came back to the lineup, there wasn't a place for a third aggressive rifler on the roster. Device and Glaive would both say it themselves. Even though Malik was in an interview talking about how meta doesn't exist and Nico will be a great opper, we all know how that would turned out. Astralis are smarter than that. They know they need a star opper. They've both said it. Glaive said it. Op-centric meta. Device knows that, and they made the appropriate team around them. You need a tier 1 opper on a tier 1 lineup. So what does it mean for Astralis? That means S-Attack is an option. But the magnitude of the size of those shoes, like the amount of pressure that comes with that, is just insane. I mean, some would say there's no better opper to have on your dream team than Device. right? I mean, that is a completely reasonable thing to say. In some senses, you're never going to find another Opper that's as good as him. That would fit as well in Astralis or come even close in terms of individual skill. These are enormous shoes. So there isn't really a good option for the short term. For the long term, who knows? You could develop with someone like Asatag, who's proven that he's like really versatile, who works really well with Astralis. And they had that fantastic honeymoon period where they won Pro League. I think they dropped a single series with Asatag, a single map maybe, but it wasn't with him as an Opper. And this was, of course, with Device in Pro League as well. So this is to keep in mind that in terms of filling this void, this enormous, 80 million metric ton void that is Device leaving a roster, Bubsky is not a... Bubsky can fit on this lineup in some way, but he's not a Device replacement. And Esatag, in terms of fitting into the roster with Glaive, maybe even as a Zipix replacement, that it might not be the end of roster moves. And this is the ripple effect that we are seeing that could potentially come of Astralis losing Device. I mean, it might not be the last roster change here. Zipix is still a question. This is proof that your environment can raise your consistency. This was a really good example of that. One tournament, but man, this was incredibly impressive. Let's count up the maps they lost with him. Actually, this is one series they lost with him. One single series and then won the event. So, as a natural fit, yeah. He wasn't on the team as an Opper, though. Not that he can't. He was an Opper, but yes, this, of course, there's not any perfect options. That's the only thing. It's just such an unbelievable, like, the magnitude of the impact that's coming out of this. It's probably unparalleled in terms of how much it'll shake up, more than a few rosters here. In Denmark, NIP, what happens in the scene now? With this one roster change, the options are endless, really. The amount of directions that we could go. It's a great photo. It's a good photo. Do you think Device regrets when he goes to land? I don't think you make choices that are this great without coming into the decision with a star player mentality. Right? Okay. In terms of his mentality as an individual star and that confidence, I think that has to come over. And when you make a career decision this big, you have to understand what you're putting at risk. Everything we're crossing our mind now about, wow, is this a good idea or not? Imagine how many times he's thought about that. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt in that regard and say that he's man enough to understand that it's something that could go wrong, that he's either content with what he's accomplished or that he's confident enough to do it because this is what he believes is the correct career trajectory. He still has more to prove, whatever his goals are, Will the NIP improve? Absolutely. I mean, they, yeah, of course. So it's not a given. It's not guaranteed, but he knows that. Everyone knows that. NIP know that. Yeah. Well, he said that he hasn't reached his individual level in his career. Whether or not that's true, nobody knows. Nobody knows. I don't even know if he really believes that or not. I think that could be true. I think we've seen some games even this year that showed us that Device. Listen, I've watched a lot of demos, okay? And I personally watched the demos of every single kill record, world edit on train, config on overpass, all of these different maps. I've never seen a more impactful, higher kill, career best performance game than Device versus Fnatic in that recent game on train. That was the most unreal level of impact that I've seen from a career high performance. At least that's somewhat records. I don't know if that was really high. It was like 40 and 13 or something, but I think who knows? I don't know. I don't know genuinely how good he thinks he can get and how consistent, but that's really just for him to show us. What do you think about Astralis A core? I haven't even watched. Maybe we should watch a mouse demo today, but it felt like A core is like doing really good, really well. He's improving. He's clearly born to op. He's so I don't know. This lineup looks. This lineup, in my opinion, I joke about Rops going to this team and that team, but this lineup, in my opinion, is a very good lineup on paper. The only question is how good can Dexter call for a tier 1, because this team needs to be top 10. This roster needs to be top 10. Rops is seasoned. Frozen is seasoned now. A-Core can step up to the challenge. B-Mass is the new guy that maybe needs another year of development or something. Nobody else has an excuse. We can't look at Frozen as a young guy anymore. We can't look at Rops as a young guy. And he doesn't, they don't need to be. They've been good, very consistent. BMass is a new guy. He can be a bit inconsistent. They can work on things, and we could see. But overall, in my opinion, Dexter was a very good pickup. I would have taken that chance myself. I think I like every prospect on this team. In some ways, this kind of feels like OG to me. A lot of players who you can't see who is the simple device Zywoo, Rops, but of course, Rifler and still a role player, even though he's a star player. But, like OG, very even across the board, high fragging IGL, interesting ideas, super consistent opper, rookie year opper, Montu, who knows how good he'll get in 1 year. Same for A-Core. We'll see about that development. Device is joining NIP. Are you serious? Why are you trolling me? Dude, everybody has come in here today and said that Device is joining NIP. And at some point, like, I'm going to have to check. Like, I know you're joking, but of course, like, at some point, I'll bite. I don't know where the joke has come from. Maybe I'll just look where the meme's coming from. Not even Did you know that Astralis is getting a new player? Dude, why are you trolling me, dude? NIP got a new player? What do you mean? Okay. I'm a big Mouse fan. Watched a lot of matches from my perspective. There are times where everything falls to Rops and Frozen. A-Core seems too inconsistent. Good Dexter plays like a god on some maps and not so good on some others. His calls are very weird. Okay. Yeah, so... I mean, I don't know how willing Mouse fans are to... I feel like Mouse fans are some of the nicer fans in the scene. Like, if you were going to have a team that had, like, decently wholesome fans, I feel like Mouse fans would be some of the most forgiving. Mouse fans have gone through a lot, you know, over the years. So I think they're willing to give people a chance. They know that their favorite player is probably going to get sold one day, that Mouse are going to take a chance on some new talent. They're going to have to try to fall in love with some, you know, up and coming star over and over again. Mouse fans know what they have to go through to be a Mouse fan. So I assume some Mouse fans are cool trying to see, you know, where Dexter can improve as an IGL and as a individual. But yeah, when I watched his games from when he was playing in Australia, and I thought he was a really strong player. So I'm very hopeful for him in Europe personally. Mouse fans have Rops. Yeah, well, yeah. Some Mouse fans are just Rops fans. That's true. Woxic just joined C9 Valorant. Imagine like having news today, okay? Now, like, imagine you, like, it's your big day. You have like Woxic wants to join C9 Valorant or like anything. Imagine your roster change was planned for today. You got the cake ready, you got the confetti ready and everything, and then fucking Device joins NIP on your day. No one's gonna remember what the fuck you did today. Sorry. Your news sucks. Device joined NIP. There's no other news. Source 2, sorry. Device joined NIP. You got fucked. They hid the news. There's no way for you to do a better job. You just had to get lucky and pick a different day. Unfortunately, it's over for you. That's like dying on the same day LeBron dies, you know, 40 years from now. Unlucky. No one cares that you died. LeBron died, you know. Unfortunate. Can you talk about Device joining NIP? You know, maybe I'll stop the stream here and like Reggie Watts, I'll put it on a loop and then I'll just play the beginning of this stream over and over again for 3 days. Since that's all that anyone is going to ask about for the next fucking week.